Everyone, first of all, big thank you to TechSoup for having us here today. Ilya and I are so excited to talk about digital marketing funnels and what that means in 2022 and a few of our favorite channels. We had an introductory slide, but Chiara did such an amazing job introducing us. I think we can probably skip over it because, again, I think it was pretty much covered already. And I would love to talk to you a bit about the agenda for today. And so we're going to talk about, first what a digital marketing funnel is, and kind of give you an example of what that looks like. And it's going to set the stage for three channels that we think are going to be especially important in 2022, and three channels that we saw a lot of success in the previous year. So that's the Google Ad Grants, paid ads, as well as email marketing. And we're going to explain how all of those channels fit within the funnel itself. And then we're gonna, just conclude the webinar with some Q&A. So just a quick introduction. Again, we're super excited to be here, and Ilya is gonna actually kick us off by talking about the digital marketing funnel.
Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can see me. Simon's absolutely correct. We're so excited, and we really do think the digital marketing funnel in 2022 is just such an important concept. A lot of the things that you're going to hear today really come from our experience working with nonprofits over the last 12 years. And we've really seen how the landscape has shifted over time, and imploring and using the digital marketing funnel as a system, as a way to strategically think about the journey of someone who finds out about you and leading that person to becoming a supporter, an advocate, purchaser, donor, volunteer, someone who is engaged deeply with your organization. The reason the digital marketing funnel is so important as a concept and as a strategy is that it helps you really determine two things: how to increase the amount of people in your funnel, and just as importantly, how to move people further down the funnel. This will let you see, how to properly allocate funds, how to really look at different consumer segments. We see things becoming so much more complicated as time goes on. So when we look at the digital marketing funnel, we can see three distinct steps. Your goal is to increase the amount of people at the top of the funnel, and then use various tools to push people further and further and further down the funnel. Right. So just to highlight what the three steps here are awareness, right? Helping people become aware of the great work that you do by bringing them to your website or your social media or your online presence in general, whether it's your YouTube or any other places, right? The next step is engagement, having people actually engage, whether it's through your content, whether it's through volunteer opportunities, whether through events, email subscriptions. There's an infinite different amount of ways that you can have someone engage with your organization. And then finally, action, right? The end goal of whatever funnel it is that you're looking at, getting people to donate, acting as brand ambassadors for your organizations that sell goods, having people buy these goods, right? All of these processes take time. We can look at our own life examples and see how the way that we interact with brands, the way that we interact with organizations, it's all within this sort of funnel. You don't just instantly make purchase decisions on the fly. There's a time where you become aware, there's a time where you learn more about the organization, and that's actually you as a person going through the funnel. So what we want to do is shape our thinking about how we interact with people online into the same kind of thought process, so we can control all the different aspects of the funnel and use the resources we have available to the utmost utilization, right? So, but more importantly, the funnel has always existed. You can find it in business books, you can find it in marketing guides, but we really think that 2022 is an extremely important shift. We're going to talk more through the presentation. You're going to see the marketing funnel. You're going to see it in a lot of our slides, because we're always going to be relating back to this concept while we're highlighting different tools that are available to you as nonprofit organizations, right? It's more important now than ever because of the amount of time being spent online, right? We're seeing different statistics from different places saying anywhere between 35 to 50% increase in use online. What does that mean? That means that you have the opportunity to get 35% to 50% more engagement with people that might not know about your organization. And if they do, you want to push them further and further down into this action segment that we're talking about. Another thing that has changed drastically recently is that the journeys that people take are so varied and so unique, right? There's so many different places that that individuals can find your organization, whether it's social media, whether it's, like you said, YouTube, whether it's on your website, whether it's through your mailing list. And all these people have different wants and needs and asks and want to be told different things through messaging. The funnel methodology allows you to properly segment that, think about a specific group of individuals and see what is the best strategy to target this specific target market. And understanding where your efforts are and its impact on the funnel will allow you to see how they fit together, right? We don't want at the end of this presentation for you to remember, okay, awareness, engagement, action. Those things are awesome on their own, but what's really important is the way that they're interconnected and the way that they flow into each other, right? That is really the key behind this, rather than this graphic just showing the different stages. It's more important to understand how they interact with each other. So you're going to see some of this content throughout our slides a little bit later on, right? And I just want to highlight it right now, just a big overview of some of the tools. These are samples, right? There's many out there. The things that are highlighted in red, you will see us discussing today, right? So of course, the Google Ad Grant. Simon will get into that in just a little bit, but just the absolute starting point for digital marketing for nonprofits. I cannot recommend it enough. Simon's going to go into a little bit more detail, but it's absolutely phenomenal. But the important part of looking at each of these tools is that you can actually relate to them. You probably have seen this in your own life, right? You have seen SEO. You know that things come up faster versus other ones when you do a Google search. Content creation, when you see things that make you interact, whether on social media or other places. As you move further and further down the funnel, we get a little bit more targeted, right? Paid digital ads. You'll see that both in engagement and action, and we'll actually talk about how that works and where different paid media platforms are better. Email subscriptions and nurturing, we discussed that a little bit earlier. It's so important, and I'll be discussing later why I think it's the most underutilized tool that nonprofits are not fully using right now. And down as you get to the bottom, we get hyper targeted, remarketing, drip sequences, paid digital ads, and we'll talk a little bit more about all of those. This is just an overview slide. Now, what I would really like to do, and what you'll see us do throughout this presentation, is pull on our experience. We've been in this nonprofit sector exclusively for over 12 years, and we've seen organizations that have used this to extreme effectiveness. But also, what I really like to do is humanize things. I feel like sometimes when we talk about digital marketing, we talk about it online, we tend to forget that it's actually people behind the computer screen, right? We'll see numbers like clicks and click-through rate and impressions, but it's really important that you humanize what's happening within the digital sphere so that then you could properly segment and target different groups of customers, right? So let's just take a little quick example, something that we have seen happen many times and something that we're going to recommend over and over again, right? So the awareness portion. Someone is looking for a nonprofit organization in their area that supports homelessness, right? You're an organization that works with homeless, and they can find you through the Google Ad Grant because you're using this tool in order to put yourself out there and connect with people who are already searching for your message. They come to your website, and your website has good landing pages, it has good stories, it has information about the services that you provide for the community. They see the great work you do, and they want to learn more. They sign up to your email list, and that goes into your email marketing system. What happens after that is you will segment this person, right? They likely came either to donate or to volunteer. They might have given you the email because you put out good content. They want to support the cause. And I'll talk a little bit more about segmentation in a little bit. But then through drip email sequences and remarketing, you help this person become more aware of how they can support your organization. A lot of times when somebody gives an email, it's like, hey, you're doing some awesome work. I would love to know more. This is your opportunity to engage them to a deeper level and show them the amazing work that you do. And what does this lead to? This leads to donations, this leads to volunteers, and this leads to purchases if your organization is selling something, right? You'll see this topic of me trying to humanize and really understanding the human portion of the journey as time goes on. So without further ado, Simon will be talking about the Google Ad Grant, the very first portion, the highest level of awareness. You'll notice this theme that we're going to be explaining what the tool is. We're going to show you how it works. We're going to show you how it fits in the funnel and why it's so important to talk about in 2022. So Simon, take it away.
Amazing. Thanks, Ilya. Yeah, so I just want to quickly preface and explain why we pick these three tools to talk about. We're going to talk about the Google Ad Grant. We're going to talk about what we call paid ads, as well as email marketing. It's because through 2021, in our work, as an agency, these are the platforms that we really saw our clients naturally trend towards and saw a lot of success for. So we really want to highlight those three things for you here today. So we're going to start with the Google Ad Grant. And I always love this as a starting point because it's such an amazing tool. It is so accessible for any nonprofit organization. And I'll go into some details about how the grant works and what it does, but it provides nonprofits with a free advertising budget, right? And so because it's free, because of the cost, it's just so accessible for people to, get started using it as opposed to putting a lot of money into another platform right off the bat. Because of its accessibility, oh, I forgot to turn on my webcam, sorry. Because of its accessibility, it is a great introductory product for nonprofits to dip their toes and to get started in terms of understanding digital marketing as well as the funnel. So because of the grant or the free nature of this program, it allows you to be a lot more experimental with how you are promoting your organization. You can try things that you think are more maybe obvious, let's say, but you can also try strategies that are a little bit more out of the box and see whether that works or not. And what's great about that is you're going to get a lot of data when you try those things. And you can take that information and help inform any other marketing or digital marketing efforts that you're going to do. Because it's so versatile, you can play around at different stages of the funnel. So you can do at the top of the funnel for awareness, you can target towards the middle of the funnel, or even try to go after that the action part, which of course has a lot of value, but tends to be a little bit more challenging. But because again, this program is free for you to use, you just have so much room for error that you can just attempt all of those things and see what works or not, right? So that's why I always love this as a starting point. We worked with over 400 nonprofits since our inception. This is by far um, the most often the starting point for nonprofits, and a lot of times nonprofits start to use Google Grants as an introduction to digital marketing. They start seeing success. They take that into other forms of digital marketing, and then are able to build on that and find success in those places. So, again, such a wonderful starting point. Um, you can use free ad credits to put your ads in front of people who are already on Google looking for things that you may offer, whether that's a service, whether that's volunteering, whether that's some kind of opportunity, right, or even information. And like I just said, you can impact every part of the funnel. So depending on how you use it, you can target each of the individual stages. So with that in mind, in terms of like why it's so important to talk about the ad grants, I do want to explain a bit about what it is and some of the mechanisms in terms of how it works, right? So just really quick, $10,000 per month in free Google Ads advertising. So that's what Google's offering to nonprofits. And I found throughout the years, a lot of times people mistake the 10,000 per month as maybe being 10,000 per year or 10,000 one-time grant because it sounds like such a large amount. And I just want to be clear, this is a per month grant. So maybe another way to think about it is $120,000 per year that you can get from Google. On this slide, I just want to make clear in terms of how it works that Google is not giving you 10,000 in cash every month. As wonderful as that would be, that's not how the program works. They're giving you credits that you can use on the advertising platform called Google Ads, right? So you see in this diagram with the kind of like poker chips, 10,000 month after month after month. What's great about the program is that there's no end date. Uh, the first client we ever worked with in 2010 has gotten every month of the past almost 12 years. So it's almost 1.5 million that they've been able to benefit from this program without having to reapply for the grant, right? They just keep getting the funds. And so to me, it's a wonderful thing to also get started with sooner than later, because then you can benefit more from it the sooner that you get into the program. The last thing I just want to stress about this program is that if you spend the maximum amount that's allowed, your ads will just stop running. It's not like a system that Google is using to get you to accidentally spend more and then they're going to charge you and make money off you. You don't even give them your credit card information, so that opportunity doesn't exist. It's really a free program that they make available for nonprofits. So I do want to explain a bit about what what looks like from the other side, the human side of things. And so just to explain how search advertising works, I want to just kind of bring it down to like a real example of how we go about things. So let's say in this example, let's say you're an individual, let's say you live in San Francisco and you have interest in donating to a food bank, right? And so more than likely, if you were in that position, I would guess the first place you would go, and the majority of people would go, is Google, right? You open up Google, you're going to type in a search query. So donate food in San Francisco. And so how it works is if an organization would like to promote to certain searches, they need to add that as a keyword into a list and tell Google that they want to promote ads when someone searches for these things. So you see on the left side the keyword list, donate food in San Francisco being one of the possibilities that they want to advertise for. And so again, going back to the individual, if I'm searching on Google to donate food in San Francisco, this particular organization says they want to show an ad when someone searches for the keyword. And if there's a relevant match, we see an ad appear in the Google search results page. So it says there, donate to SF Marin Food Bank. And if I am searching, I click on the ad, I go through, I get to the website where I have an opportunity to learn more about the organization and to donate to them. So that's just a really quick example of how search ads work. It's a very high intent platform, right? I'm going on Google to search for something and I'm getting an answer. So my intent is usually pretty high. And so that's why we also see a lot of good quality traffic exist on this platform. So I am going to talk a bit about the funnel and where the Google Ad Grant fits in the funnel, but I do want to quickly go over some of the eligibility criteria for this grant program. Um, and it's a couple of basic ones, but the first one is that you have to be a registered nonprofit with TechSoup. So our wonderful sponsors today of the webinar, TechSoup, they actually collaborate with Google to help verify that organizations are registered nonprofits. And if you're not registered with TechSoup yet, I would highly encourage you to do that because along with all the wonderful things that come with TechSoup, it also allows you to apply for the Google Ad Grant, right? So that's the first step. Second, you have to have a good quality website. Something that you own, something that has HTTPS, secured, that kind of thing, that has like good content in it, good content on the site. And then lastly, you cannot be a restricted type of entity for the program. The two entities that we see most often in terms of not being allowed with the program are schools or universities, as well as hospitals. And just to be clear, you can be like education related nonprofits, you can be medical related nonprofits. Those are all eligible for the grant. It's just like the actual professional institutions that they don't allow to get the grant, right? So it's a pretty like open and widely available program for nonprofits. And so that's also another reason why it's so wonderful. Okay, so with that criteria in mind, let's talk a bit about where it fits in the funnel. I was mentioning before when I was introducing the grant that it can really fit at any stage of the funnel, depending on the kind of strategy that you use. And in that sense, it's maybe a little bit more unique than the other ones, but there's just so much versatility. So let's look at the top of the funnel, awareness. If you are just trying to get the word out and just to try to get people to notice things that you're doing, you can attract people who are looking for your cause area. So let's take the example of the food bank, right? Let's say that I was mainly interested in getting people at the top of the funnel, the awareness stage. I might be thinking of advertising on search queries like, what is food insecurity? Or, how many people are homeless or something like that, right? It's these queries that are a little bit more of the exploratory and like questioning type of searches that you can attach to and provide information for that gets them awareness of your organization. If let's say your strategy is to focus more in the middle of the funnel, so people who are looking for a little bit deeper engagement, you could be promoting certain events that you run. Maybe it's like a special food drive, or it could be volunteerism, and then use that as an opportunity to collect people's emails. So for instance, again, if you're a food bank, let's say you want to get people to volunteer. You could be attaching ads to queries for when people search for things like how do I volunteer for a food bank, or can I volunteer for a food bank? It's funny because around Thanksgiving, we see a spike in these searches because people are interested in doing this, right? People search for soup kitchens and food banks and how to make a difference, right? So these are real things that happen and ways, opportunities for you to put yourself in front of them. And then as we get to the bottom of the funnel, in terms of action, you could be using targeting queries that are a lot more, let's say, a target at people who are a lot more ready to move forward. So in the previous example, it could be like donating food to a food bank, or how do I donate food, or how do I help the homeless? It could be these types of queries that you could run for, right? And just quickly, I just want to give some insight on some of the strategy or some of the strategic mindset that comes into play here, because it can fit in all three parts of the funnel. The natural thought process might be, why don't we just target action and just ignore awareness and engagement? Why not just focus on action, because that's ultimately what we want. And that's where you need to adopt a strategic mindset, because there might not be enough people searching for just who are just ready to take action. That might be a smaller pool of people, or it could be a much more competitive pool. And therefore, you might actually get more results by focusing on the top of the funnel, where there's a lot more people, a lot more searchers, right? A lot more volume, and then use other strategies to bring them through the funnel, where you then turn them into someone who's going to take action, right? So while it's idealistic to say, I just want to target the bottom of the funnel, it's not always going to happen. And that's where you need to employ other strategies and creativity to engage stages that are more upper in the funnel, and then bring them through the funnel as you engage them. So anyway, that's just part of the strategy that you would kind of go through as you think about this. All right, so that's the Google Ad Grant program that's we love a lot here. I want to now talk about another platform that you could potentially use, or really like a combination of platforms. And we're going into talking about paid ads. Ilya, if you could do the next slide, please. Beautiful. So I want to make a distinction between what paid ads is versus the Google Ad Grant, because some of how it works is pretty similar. But where the Google Ad Grant is free, paid ads means that you're going to certain platforms and paying for ad space, so paying for them to promote your organization. And what we saw a lot actually in 2021 is a lot of nonprofits be successful with the Google Ad Grant, but also supplementing that with paid ads, being able to build off that and see even more success, as well as working together to actually create synergistic success from that point. So paid ads is, again, essentially that you're going to certain platforms and paying for them to promote your content or promote an ad. Why I think it's so important to talk about paid ads is because it's a great way to diversify the way that you spend your marketing dollars and energy. We saw a pretty big shift in 2021, and probably will continue in 2022, the trend of some more traditional forms of marketing, kind of like more physical forms of marketing into digital, right? And so because of that shift and what's going to be a continued shift towards the digital direction, it's important, I think, for all organizations to diversify the way that they're reaching their audience, right? We also see, a lot of possibilities of platforms come into play. And because there's so many platforms that you can use, and ones that naturally are stronger for different parts of the funnel, you also have a lot of options of what you can use, right? So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok became a big thing in 2021. That's another possibility, right? LinkedIn, all of these platforms are possibilities for you to put your organization out there. A general benefit of digital over more traditional, like physical forms of advertising, is that you have a lot of control over your audience targeting, messaging, and creative assets, and you can also change them on the fly. So let's take, for example, maybe you put an ad for your nonprofit on a TTC bus or like the subway or something like that, right? That ad's going to be there and it's going to run for a certain amount of time. You don't really have an easy way to adjust that over like very quickly, right? But also that you don't have a large amount of control over the audience, right? if you're on a TTC, it's going to be a whole combination of a lot of different demographics, and these are people who are streaming in and out, and depending on who you get, you're going to hope that your target market is somewhere in there. With digital marketing, because you can target it by people's interests, by their demographics, by what they're searching for, by what websites they're on, you have so much control over saying, I want to target this specific segment of people. And because it's digital, you can also change it right away to something else. If you're seeing that it's not being effective here, you can right away switch it to something else. So that's why digital is just such a powerful tool nowadays. With all the different platforms available, it allows for you to run what's called an omni-channel strategy. It just means that you're appearing in all the places where your audience might be. So you could be targeting on multiple platforms simultaneously to make sure that your presence is felt everywhere. You can control your goals by balancing impressions versus clicks and visuals versus text. What that means is, depending on what the objectives are for your organization, you could focus more on getting just the eyeballs, or you can focus on getting people clicking through and actually taking more action, right? As well as control over your analytics, because another great point about digital is that you get so much data about people when they go through things. In the example of the TTC ad, you don't know exactly how many people saw it, who those people were, right? You have generalities about that, but not specifics. And so when you use digital and on paid platforms, you get a ton of data and metrics on who exactly did this and what did they do and how many people did it and what percentage of them follow through in this. So because of the abundance of data, it allows you to inform the success of that, as well as to know how to build future campaigns that will be even more successful, right? So many benefits of paid ads. We're going to talk a little bit about a few of the platforms. We're just going to pick a couple because there's so many, but these are the ones that we saw a lot of our clients ask for and see success for in the previous year. So if you could go to the next slide, Ilya, I do want to talk first about the Google Display Network. Previously with the grant, we were talking about what's called the search network. This is just, very quickly called the display network. Basically, if you've ever gone to like a website, maybe like a news site, and you see like those banner ads, Google has a network of organizations and websites that have chosen to provide ad space to Google to promote on. So those are the type of ads that we're talking about. With display, it tends to be more naturally towards awareness rather than an engagement or action. That's for a couple of reasons. One is very visual, right? And because you have visuals, people tend to get to see your brand and images and pictures, so they get to associate something with that. Also because these ads appear as you're browsing for something else, that person who's browsing tends to be less intent-based. So for instance, let's say I'm just want to find some news about, the hockey game or something. I'm going to a site. I'm actually trying to find information about the hockey game, but on the side and at the top or wherever they chose to display it, I'm noticing a brand there, right? So because it's less, my intent was less about finding that person. It was more about the action of the information. It's just more about awareness. I'm noticing the brand, I'm seeing a messaging, but I may not necessarily want to follow through because that's not what I was actually looking for, right? So that's why display tends to be geared towards awareness. But you can get a ton of awareness, ton of eyeballs on it at a low cost with the display network, and that's what it's good for. It's good for filling up the top of your funnel and creating brand awareness. So we go to the next channels. This is more of like the social media channels. We saw a lot of demand last year for Facebook and Instagram. And those ones operate a little bit differently from display. You can use it for awareness, but it can also be a little bit better, more geared towards engagement. So in a similar way, you get to display the visuals to a certain demographic, but you can also use certain formats of ads that are explicitly asking for certain actions. So stuff like signups, event registrations, petitions, could be purchasing, whatever it is. So it tends to be a little bit more engagement focused than what we see with the Google Display Network. And if we go to the last option, we're talking about what's called paid Google search. It's similar to the grant in that you're going to see it in the same place, as in when you go to Google to search for something, you're going to see ads. What's different when you pay for it is that you tend to get Google tends to show you more often than they would if you're just using the grant, right? So what that means is with paid ads is you can tends to be better for spaces that are more competitive versus the grant. That's why with the grant we usually focus more on the top of the funnel, but with paid ads because you can be more competitive. Also, because you're paying for that, you tend to want to focus more on engagement and action to see a better return, right? Um, Google search to me is like such a fantastic place to go if you're looking for action because um, compared to the display network, you're now targeting people who are high intent. So what I mean by that is if you're going to Google, you are searching to donate food to a food bank, you are going there with the purpose of finding an answer, which is to donate to some place. So that intent is high, and because of that, that person is more ready to either fill out a form to engage or to actually take the end action, which is to make a donation, right? So paid ads is a great place for you to be if you are wanting to go for high intent people. You can also combine paid ads with Google Grants to create a great synergistic effect. So what you can do with Google Grants is to use the 10,000 per month in free ads to fill up the top of the funnel and engage people. But you can also use the learnings from that to figure out who you should be engaging with paid ads. So let's say with the grant, you're finding a certain keyword or certain audience that's actually engaging with others. You can then migrate that campaign into your paid ads where you're going to get more impressions, more eyeballs, and you can build on that success and actually be more competitive and get more people coming in. So there's a great collaboration that you can have between grants and pays. So we just talked about grants. We talked about paid ads and a couple of different platforms. These are all great tools for you to fill the funnel. But something that Ilya mentioned earlier is that you also need to have a way to get them through the funnel because you don't want people to just stay in the awareness stage. You want to eventually move them to engagement and then move them to action. So you need a mechanism to move people through the funnel. So that's what Ilya is going to talk about next.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Simon. Just making sure my camera works. All right. That was awesome. Simon's absolutely correct. There are two parts. You need to fill the funnel and you need to move people through the funnel. Here again, remember that all the information I'm presenting is simply through the experience of working with over 400 nonprofits. It's email is just so underutilized because it's so powerful. Somebody is giving you the permission to reach out to them based on what they saw. Like just conceptually, it's really, really powerful. You can imagine just purely from a statistics standpoint that somebody who has given you their email versus somebody who has never heard of you is much, much, much more likely to donate, to engage, to volunteer, to purchase, to attend an event, whatever it is. But really, what email marketing comes down to, and the way that we like to think about it, is a system of acquisition, aka acquiring emails, segmenting them based on their interests, based on where they came from, based on audience targeting, and then creating highly targeted messaging, right? So just as a really, really quick example, someone who is interested in your blog post and subscribed to that newsletter versus somebody who donated, they need completely different messaging in order for them to be effective. Not to say that the blog person won't turn into a donor, but currently they're at a different stage of the funnel, right? Another great thing is that you have the ability to directly talk to your base, right? It's completely different than advertising where you're talking to people who don't know about your organization or don't know much about what you do. Whereas email, once they're in your system, you have the ability to adapt quickly, send them messages when things happen, whether it's changes in policy, whether it's changes in what your product offering is, whatever it may be, you have a direct line to the individuals that give you this. Another great thing about it is that you make direct asks. They have given you permission to reach out. Of course, be smart about it, and we'll talk a little bit about how that works as we're wrapping up the webinar. But you can make direct asks for volunteers, for purchases, attendance, support, donations, and that all ties back to the acquisition and segmentation, and then giving them customized, highly targeted content. And like I mentioned, it's the most underutilized tool for nonprofit organizations. A lot of times organizations will collect emails and they won't segment and they won't create custom messaging. And there won't be opportunities to create even more acquisition of emails. And then when they do, they don't use it effectively. They don't use drip sequences, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But honestly, from our experience, this is something that we see is super underutilized. We'll talk a little bit about the funnel once again, right? The goal of email marketing and thinking about email marketing is using the tools that we presented, right? Whether it's the Google Ad Grant, whether it's paid ads through Facebook or display or Google search, or some of the other ones we mentioned like TikTok and Pinterest and LinkedIn, whatever it may be. A goal of an email marketing strategy is to use those tools, use those different channels to bring people to your website, right? The next step is good landing pages. You'll notice that before, even when we were talking about the Google Ad, we were talking about having a good website. The way I like to think about it is, imagine you could bring 1 million people to your website. If your website is not functional, if your website isn't crafted great, doesn't have many options, a lot of those people will simply leave. So no matter how much traffic you bring, if you have a website that's not optimal, you're going to be losing a lot on conversion ratio. And from our experience, landing pages, great landing pages versus very average landing pages can lead to 2 to 3 times more conversions, right? Using that traffic to acquire more emails. And then finally, the most important part, segment the emails and set up automations to push users further down the funnel in order to convert them into donors, into purchasers, increasing attendance for events. And I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like purely from a methodology perspective. Your email list should have multiple segments, right? These segments are based on where the individual came from and also the audience type, right? So the type of person this is. Everybody needs a little bit of different messaging, right? I'm not saying have 1 million segments, but there definitely should be very clear outlines of how you speak to different segments, whether they're donors, just newsletter subscribers, past volunteers, people who have purchased goods, people who have attended an event before. All of those things you can think of yourself, right? If you had attended an event, right, and they're just like bombarding you with lots of blog posts, that doesn't really make much sense. Well, you can send them, hey, here's an update of the event. This is how much money we raised. This is the impact that we caused. These are some future events. Please check out some of the great work we do. Logically, that just makes a lot more sense, right? And when you apply that into like this mass thinking of how to really use email marketing, it becomes so much more impactful. And the reason I say that is because this content, this highly specialized content, leads to higher open rates, higher click-through rates, and higher conversion rates. It's something we've seen personally. And I will always vouch for having a stronger email marketing system for any organization. It's just absolutely so powerful. So now we've gone through the 3 different platforms, the 3 different channels that we wanted to discuss, and I really want to wrap it all up. We've mentioned the digital marketing funnel so much throughout this presentation, and that's because we really, really want to emphasize how important it is to use this thinking when it comes to your digital marketing presence, right? Using the digital marketing funnel as a thought process is a way to strategically think about your efforts and how users engage with your organization online, right? And I know we're using the word users, but I would really, really love to conceptualize it as people. How do people interact with your organization online, right? If you think about like a physical restaurant, if you have a restaurant but you have no tables, no seating, your menu is bad, your service is awful, that wouldn't really make sense, and you would want to know that and you would want to change it. The same exact methodology applies to online. You want to understand how people are interacting with your organization. Another great part about the digital marketing and the funnel versus, let's say, a physical location, you need to implement systems to track, analyze, and improve on moving people further down the funnel and seeing how people engage with you. Something that's definitely not available in traditional media and definitely not available in the physical space. And one of the huge benefits of digital marketing is these analytical systems. And another important concept, of course, please leverage the tools that we have shown today. They're absolutely some of the most powerful tools that we have seen nonprofits specifically use to their advantage. Definitely start with the Google Ad Grant. If that's something that you haven't had yet or haven't explored, there's an absolute importance that is where you start. All these other things will come after. I can't even explain how many times someone has started the Google Ad Grant. It's like, wow, this is amazing. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it has such a serious impact on your organization. Briefly, before we go into the Q&A, we're just going to talk a little bit about what we do as a company, ConnectAd. Just this single slide, you will get everything later. Similar to how we're talking today, we really love to be a strategic thought partner. I won't go through all of these bullets, but I would appreciate if we just took a look at some of the great work we do. I'm so proud to work here because we really focus on the success of organizations, and that's why we've chosen to support and work exclusively with nonprofits, right? Digital marketing strategy, much like what we talked about today. And of course, all the things that we mentioned today are things that we do, and much more than that. In the next slide, you'll see my email. Please reach out. There will be a free consultation. Me and you could chat, discuss different portions of the funnel, or any of the individual services that we talked about today, any of the individual platforms. There's absolutely no strings attached. I love talking to nonprofits. So please send me an email. It's right there. You can also find it on our website. I'd be more than happy to connect. Now, let's get to the questions, my favorite part.
Amazing. Wow, thank you so much both Ilya and Simon for such an informative and dynamic presentation. As Ilya mentioned, we do have some time now for Q&A, and there's been a lot that have already come in during the presentation, so we'll see how much of them we can cover. But of course, as Ilya just said, both Ilya and Simon are more than happy to hear from you, so make sure you note down that email address if you do want to reach out later to ask other questions or want to know more about their services or want to book their consultation. They've been telling me all along how eager they are to hear from our members, so they mean it. And I also did see in the questions being asked during the presentation some questions around how to become a member of TechSoup, which, as we've heard in the presentation, is a prerequisite for registering for the grants program. So for those who are not yet members of TechSoup Canada, you can visit our website at techsoup.ca, and you'll see in the menu there's a support and FAQ, frequently asked questions tab in our menu, and there's a drop-down menu there with links on how to get started, how to review eligibility guidelines, and all of that great stuff. So as I mentioned, lots of questions, but I thought it'd be good to start from the very basics. Some of our attendees were curious about the amounts that are specified for the Google Ad grants. Are we talking Canadian dollars or US dollars? Let's start there.
Simon, want to go ahead?
Sure. It's in US dollars. That's the short answer. It's in US dollars.
Great.
Yeah.
Good to know. And then when we're talking about the Google Ad Grant program, does the program refer only to charities, or is it also are also nonprofits that are not registered charitable organizations eligible?
Are we talking about Canada specifically here? Hopefully, yes. So in Canada, you could be a charity or a nonprofit organization. The question really comes down to how you're registered with the CRA. It's a little bit more, let's say, dynamic than what the situation is in the United States. So there is more flexibility. Individual eligibility questions, please send me an email. But a great starting point if you kind of want to deal with this yourself, right? So the first step is getting your TechSoup token, and the next step is the Google for Nonprofits, right? So if you manage to get Google for Nonprofits, you will be eligible for the Google Ad Grant. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. It's a little bit of a difficult question without having more context, but general rule of thumb: get TechSoup, attempt Google for Nonprofits, reach out to me, please, and we could talk about individual context.
Great, very straightforward and actionable. Another question we received is from a few of our participants who already do have access to the Google Ad Grant, but they're finding it quite complicated to use. So they're wondering, are there any trainings or instructional videos or step-by-step tutorials that can be accessed to learn more about how to navigate their features?
Yeah, it can be complex, especially if that's your first time working with the Google Ad program. There's a couple of resources that come to mind. The first one is that Google itself has a program to get people what's called Google Ad certified. So that's the best first place I can think of. When we bring on new hires, we train them. We actually have them go through that course. Even Ilya's gone through that course actually. And it gives you some of the fundamentals on Google Ads. It's more of a general thing. There's not really something that I've seen that is specific for the ad grant and for nonprofits, because it's a very niche it's kind of a more niche program. But the Google Ad with the official Google Ad certification is a good starting point for fundamentals. There is a Google Ad Grants forum. That's the official forum. That's another good place because a lot of people ask questions. and it's monitored by not only well, occasionally by employees of Google, but also by certified companies like us. Can also provide answers there, so that's another good possible place. Those are the two best resources I can think of. There are some videos hosted on the Google Ad Grants page, I think, but there's not that many. But yeah, those are the best resources I can think of.
Yeah, and just to chime in quickly, what I always recommend, and the mistakes that I see organizations take when they try to manage it internally, especially if there's not a lot of experience, is that there's not enough relevancy when it comes to writing the ads. And when I say that, I always like to use a little bit of a goofy example. Is, let's say I'm looking to buy a basketball and I type in and I search buy basketball online, right? Like what might I see? I might see an ad for Amazon. I might see an ad maybe Walmart, Sport Check, whatever it may be, Canadian Tire. But right, and they'll say like, oh, buy basketballs here, basketballs available here, like Wilson, Spalding, whatever it may be. But then if you imagine, what if I searched that and then I got an ad for like snow pants, right? It just wouldn't make any sense. Search is very high intent focused. So a lot of times what we see is organizations just try to use big keywords and then try to lure people into their website. Google is very, very against that. So definitely focus on relevancy, definitely focus on specificity, and most importantly, just experiment, play with it. That would be my advice.
Great, thank you so much. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. One question we received, or actually several questions from participants, were around having a good website recommendations that you brought up earlier in terms of the eligibility as well. So can we unpack that a little bit, and maybe if you have some examples or steps that you'd like to suggest to get started with that?
Yeah, so this is something I deal with a lot, as my week consists of speaking with nonprofits, and I get to see good websites, bad websites, right in the middle. Generally, what is really important for Google is content, and really more specifically, like written content. Google is able to see what's on your website, and that's part of how it calculates this relevancy piece, is having good written content. When it comes to like good landing pages, I think that the most important thing is to have a clear message and a clear goal for the person who's coming to this page, right? So let's take that example that we used of the food bank, right? Let's say someone clicked on that ad and it went to a page that just has like a million different asks, right? The search was specifically around donating food, right? So if you come to this page and it's like, oh, volunteer, here's a blog post, here's this, here's that, the user kind of gets confused. There should be a singular goal, and it should be really clear, right? When you get to that page, it should be like so obvious to an outside person that this is what we do, this is what we want from you, right, as the user. So clarity and good content are really great steps to good landing pages and good websites.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Insofar as like the grant criteria, I'll just give you a couple of technical things that they're looking for. So one is that it's SSL secured. So if your website has to be HTTPS, should have that preceding the URL. So that's one technical requirement. It should be free of like malware or any kind of bad stuff on it, right? Which a lot of people are, but if you're on like a WordPress site and it's like out of date, you're in more danger of getting malware. So I would update your sites and just check for that. That's a really bad one to have. Another easy one is like clearly like a nonprofit. So a lot of times we ask our clients to just put a little thing at the bottom. We are registered CRA number, like kind of this, right? So that's good. And then yeah, having enough content. Sometimes if it's like a single page website, there's no links, stuff's broken. Google's going to notice that and it's not going to pass their bar for a website. So yeah.
Thank you. And actually, on the content front, for anyone who's interested, we have tons of resources on our blog. We've written many blog series around how to optimize online presence for nonprofits, how to conduct a content audit, how to craft an editorial schedule, strengthen brand identity. All of that, I'm sure, will really strengthen that having a good website requirement. So if you're interested, check it out. It's on our blog. Now, another question in terms of digital advertising, it's quite a big and a growing universe. So some of our participants were interested in knowing whether the Google Ad Grant program can be used towards social media ads, like paid social media ads.
Yeah, so I got this. Simon, you could jump in. So, Google AdGrants is exclusively for search, so text-based things. That's why we were focusing a lot on the keywords. Those other platforms that we showed is the paid platforms like Google Display and Facebook and Instagram and all those things. Those are paid platforms. So for the Google AdGrants specifically, you cannot use it, but they do work very well in conjunction. They do work very well together. Yeah.
Great. And in terms of creating the funnel, since that was such a centerpiece of your presentation, can you unpack a little bit, what's the difference between a marketing funnel and a customer journey? And does the journey begin where the funnel ends?
Just the journey begin where the funnel ends. So if we were kind of looking at a timeline, there's a lot of overlapping methodology between the customer journey and the digital marketing funnel. So to clarify, the digital marketing funnel is a thought process for your organization of understanding where people are in different stages of the funnel and the tools that you can use to move them between different portions of the funnel. The customer journey, when we speak about that, we try to humanize it and bring it down to an individual level, right? So again, that reference of me purchasing a basketball, right? I'm at a certain portion of the funnel when I search to buy a basketball. But me as a customer, my journey is finding out about you through the keyword search, right? Clicking on the ad, learning more about the technical aspects of the basketball or where I can purchase it or reviews or things like that, and then eventually leading to me purchasing a basketball. So I understand that there's some overlap, but the digital marketing funnel is a way to strategically think about your organization where the customer journey is more broken down by different user segments.
Great. Thank you. So we have about 1 minute left for questions. So this is one that came up a lot, and it might be a good place for us to start to wrap up. Many people didn't catch the acronym the first time around, and we're wondering if you could refresh our memory on what RLSA stands for.
Yeah, yes. Okay, so RLSA is remarketing list for search advertising. You saw us use the word remarketing a lot. To break it down super quick, because I know we only have a little bit of time, remarketing is the concept of when you go to a website, when you visit something, you leave a little cookie. So what happens then is advertisers can use that to market to you again. You've probably seen this in your own life when you're like shopping for something on Amazon, let's say. Amazon does this like a lot. You'll be looking at something and it's like you look at the page and then you're like, you know what, whatever, later I'll do it, and then you're browsing somewhere like boom, this exact same product pops up, right? So that's how that works. Nonprofits use that extremely successfully through a variety of platforms. There's a lot of combinations. You could talk about people who have been to your website or people who have been to your social media, advertise to them. And it's just part of this whole analytics thing that's absolutely so powerful about digital marketing, is even options for things like that.
Great. Wow. Well, thank you so much. That is all the time we have today for questions, but I do want to thank Simon and Ilya again for sharing their vast knowledge with us today. And I'd like